Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back after the break. Hopefully everyone feels refreshed, having had a tea or a coffee. So if I can ask everyone to take their seats, I'll just give you a minute. Maybe you can finish your conversations in the next break. Okay, thank you. Good to see there's still quite a few people here today. So my name's Carol Valentine. I work for Kent County Council as Head of Business Services, but I'm here in my capacity as being on the board, on the executive board of Elcreek, and I'm delighted to be chairing this morning's session. Is this too loud? It sounds very loud to me, but if it's okay, that's fine. Okay, so this morning, our next session, I'm absolutely thrilled and delighted to be speaking to some of the leaders in our industry, in the supply chain and also in local authority. So what they're going to be doing is sharing all their insights about being leaders. We've heard a lot this morning about apprentices and young people coming into the organisation and into the industry, but it's really important that we have good leaders that are modelling good behaviour and that are setting the right example and being role models for our young people coming into the industry. So I'm just going to move over, sit down and do an interview with our illustrious panel. Right, so good morning everyone. Nice to see you all here. So I'm going to ask you each, first of all, just to introduce yourselves. Just say who you are, what your role is, and where you work. So I'm going to do that creep of death, and I'm going to start down the bottom with you, Rob, please.
So I'm Rob Cook, Winvic Construction's Managing Director. We're based in Northamptonshire, and we do highways, structures, large infrastructure projects across the whole country. We've been doing it as a business sector for about 4 years now, but 20 years in the industry as a civils and infrastructure sector, but public sector the last 4 years. So it's been really good. Just want to say thank you to Elcreek for inviting us here today and for the last 3 days on the stall. So it's really good to interact and see you all.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jenny Moten. I'm the Managing Director of Core Highways Regions. We're a traffic management company that covers all of the UK for traffic management and barrier services. We recently rebranded in January, and we're now the second traffic management company in the UK. Again, thank you for everyone attending this morning. I think Will Britton said last night there was lots of delicious red wine on the tables, so I'm glad to see that you consume just the right amount of that and still been able to turn up the school day.
Good morning. My name is James Haluch. I'm the Managing Director of the Breedon subsidising business. For those of you who don't know, Breedon are the largest UK-owned building materials business, aggregates, asphalt, concrete, cement and the like. So, yeah, very large business. My background is actually more network management and maintenance. I only recently moved into Tier 2, Tier 3, and yeah, maybe some of the stories we'll share as we go through the discussion.
Thank you.
And I'm Josh Sweeney, Director of Marketing and Growth at Multevo. I feel a bit of a fraud up here because I wouldn't consider, well, I'm definitely not a CEO or an MD, and I don't really consider myself a leader. I've kind of been roped into this on behalf of our wonderful owners who are a bit more camera shy than I am. So I'll try and share my insights the best I can.
Hi everyone, Karen Cassar from Lincolnshire County Council. I suppose positively, I love my role at Lincolnshire. We work very collectively with our partners, Balfour Beatties, who are sat with us, COLAS, WSP. We do work with those of the partners that are sat on here. So looking forward to sharing our journey or my journey as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I'm going to start with Jenny, and I'm just going to ask you what key experiences or moments have most influenced your leadership style, and how have they shaped the way that you lead today?
I was thinking about this morning. There's probably a couple of things that have influenced my style. Some of it is, I would say, not one big moment, but lots of people around me. And I learned very luckily and very early on in my career that the leadership roles that I should aspire to were not necessarily those people more senior to me, but leaderships and role models around me and people that worked in my team or people outside the sector. So I've really been open to learning from lots of different people. And I think the thing that's really shaped my leadership, I've worked in highways and utilities for all of my career. And I've done a lot of incident management, operated as silver and gold commanders for some of the biggest incidents that have affected the highway network in the UK. And I suppose what that has taught me to do is to, just to push on in difficult circumstances, but push on with compassion and care for the people around me. And trying really hard, and it is really hard. Every leader in the room will probably agree with me. It's really hard to make the tough decisions that have a negative impact on people and still do that with care and compassion.
Yeah.
So I suppose it's that incident commander role where you are responsible sometimes for people's lives. Definitely when I worked in the gas industry, if I made a wrong decision, we would end up with death and injury. So the leadership role and the fact that people were looking up to me actually just reminded me that leadership is about responsibility and to treat that with a huge amount of care and with a huge amount of respect.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And the impact that's had on today for you is about how you care for people that work for you. And it's that sense of responsibility.
It's really important. I mean, we're a traffic management company. And without the teams and the people that we have in core highways, we're a sign and a cone storage business. It's actually the people that we deploy onto our network that works and supports our partners that brings the business to life. And I think one of the things you have to do, and I've learned this, and sometimes I've moved on from roles or businesses because I felt that I wasn't. But I think you genuinely do need to care about people.
Yeah.
Because it just adds a little bit of tension and pause when you're making those tough decisions.
Yes. Yeah.
If you don't care, actually, you're less thoughtful about the impact of your decisions on the people around you.
I can see you nodding quite a lot, Rob. What would you say was a key experience or moment for you that really shaped your leadership style?
I think Jenny answered most of it. To be honest with you, though, it is about the leadership of other people as you've come through the industry, mentors. I look at James. James was my ex-leader and mentor at Amy. There's a lot of other individuals at Graham Construction, that I've come along through my career. And I think that's enabled me to develop a brand, because you look at those leaders and you look at their key values, how they create their brand. And a brand is basically like, what's your values? Are they honesty, respect, trust, being reliable, doing a good job, always doing those key values that create? And I took all that away from all the leaders around me and absorbed it as if a sponge, and then created my own brand based on that.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at that as a leader across every sector, everyone has had that, and that's what creates leaders eventually over time. They listen and learn to the leaders and people that you work with, peer people as well.
Yeah.
And as long as you can absorb that and do that journey for your whole career, that creates a good leader, and that creates your own brand as a person.
And I think that's really important. And that's what I'm hoping people get from today by listening to leaders, that we will have a role because somebody's watching us to see what we do, and we can have an impact on other people. Karen, can I just come on to you? So just moving on, what would you say is the most significant challenge that you've had as a leader, and how did you overcome that?
I suppose it's twofold really for me, and it's probably the elephant in the room, but as women coming into the highway industry, in general sort of society, you can still come across the misogyny, etc. But I was working at a depot, and I was the highways manager there, and I had the contracts team, and we were coming as in-house into one team. I think the challenge was they sat there. I'm a non-engineer, so I've come through the managerial, the leadership piece. Well, what's she doing here? And you would get a lot of adversity, you'd get a lot of challenge. I gave someone an example where someone brought up a washing bowl with the cups in and said, is this not your role? So you end up, sorry, can you not hear me? Hopefully people did hear what I was saying there. So yeah, you come across a lot of adversity, but because of the individual that I am, I've always wanted to be authentic. I want to be me, so that wherever you see me, that, I don't put on a show. Anyway, over the time, when I came to move on, interestingly, it was like, what are we going to do now? The captain's going. So from starting in a position of extreme challenge, male-dominated, as I say, not very particularly friendly towards me, questioning why I was there, and I'd got the promotion above somebody else that was there. So that, to me, I overcame that. And then what I wanted to do then was make sure that other women that were coming into the organisation, that I set the culture and the expectations for how everybody is welcomed. You know, diversity is welcomed. But for me, it's setting that culture based on that, you know, the adversity that I came across.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because you and I had a chat the other day and we had a very similar experience. So I remember when I first started and I went to a depot and I had all my highway managers sitting around the table.
Yeah.
You know, all men. And I didn't have an engineering background. And I think they thought, who is this woman?
Yeah.
And who is this black woman? You know,
Yeah.
what does she know about this job? So I think a lot of it's about how you then show that you can do your job. And by doing that, you build a culture and you prove what you can do. But, you know, I think it's probably worth saying that sometimes you've got to maybe try that a bit harder just because of being woman or being different in this industry. James, can I just come to you in terms of challenges? So Rob's already sort of mentioned you as being a bit of a role model, and I think you've been a role model for many of us who've come across you over the years. But what would you say is your most significant challenge as a leader with all the experience that you've had over the years?
Well, I'm very generous of Rob, but I think we all learn from each other, don't we? So but thank you, Rob. Most significant challenge, it's very easy for me to answer this, and it is the fatality of a workforce. Remember, there'll be some people in this room have had to deal with the fatality of some, you know, in their team. I've had to deal with 7. Each of those has had a very significant impact. Some of those are obviously part of the wider organisation. Others have been more direct. Because when you go to see the widow, the kids, when you're in the room with them, that's when the impact hits you. So each of those are very significant. If I pull out one, really to emphasise how that has been almost a road to Damascus moment, changed in thinking. There's a chap called Richard Poutney crossing the M4 to put signs out in August 2010. He was struck by a vehicle. Now, I seen the video of him working the day before, and effectively, if you remember Frogger the game, he was just almost running in between cars. Fully trained, daylight, good weather. He was a supervisor, actually, been on the job for some time. Complacency. And suddenly, as me changed my direction, as I say, a road to Damascus moment is, we cannot rely on people always to do the right thing, because some days they have a bad day. Some days they're rushing and they'll make the wrong decision. And from then onwards, I've always tried to be quite visionary and say, how can we do this job radically different? We remove people from risk and remove them from making the wrong decision. Now, a very long story, there's people involved in this room, how we removed people having to cross a carriageway to put signs out. The first year, we did it was a massive exercise by a lot of people. We removed 1 million carriageway crossings in the first year. But here's the thing. We suddenly could have a working window that was 40 minutes quicker at the start of shift and 30 minutes at the end of the shift. And the workforce didn't have to be big burly blokes carrying signs. So it was not just use safety as a presenting issue because you want to do the right thing. It's the benefits that comes with it, which can be efficiency, effectiveness, and ED&I as well. Mm. So I think these moments, and they happen to any of us, my God, don't waste that crisis. Do things differently afterwards.
Yeah, and that's really important. And I think this is why the question is not just what the challenge is, how did you overcome it and how does that affect your behaviour going forward? And clearly you were creating that culture of safety. And I think everybody in this room can recognise that's something that we all need to take forward. So Josh, coming to you, I've known you for quite a long time. You say you're not a leader, but you absolutely are. So just think about these challenges. Now, James has just raised something that's huge and that's very difficult, very emotional. For you and your colleagues, what sort of challenges have you had to face?
I mean, touch wood, we've not had a fatality, but I do remember a conversation with one of our owners in which he was speaking with a partner, and we've gone from being we're an SME contractor, but we've gone from having about 30 operatives to go into approaching 350 now. And at this stage, we wasn't actually as big as what we've become. We'd gone to the 200 operative mark, and one of the conversations which he passed down to the team was that the risk of fatality grows every time you recruit, basically. So we saw that as a challenge in itself. And I remember, Nick was a bit shaken that they had this conversation, and he wanted everyone to know. So he engaged, and we down with all the different groups that work all over the place, and basically relayed that conversation. And then we used that to really hammer home some of the technologies that we use. So this is stuff like James just mentioned, it's removing people from risk. But we tried to do that in one sense by using robotic mowers for some of our high-speed contracts, and we had an incident not as significant as a fatality, but any injuries serious, especially to the person that's affected, in which an operative had basically put the hand where they shouldn't, and thankfully there wasn't any significant injury, but it highlighted for us that near miss was a big risk, and it allowed us to almost double down seeing all these near misses, because we record it all digitally, and saying we have to take every near miss seriously, and we need to try and eliminate that. So I think, going back to how do we go forward, it's about making sure that everybody in the room and out of the room on the network is educated and understands the risk, because ultimately our biggest success is our people, but it's also sometimes can be the biggest risk in the decisions that they make. So it's trying to mitigate against that.
So as leaders, what do you actively do so that people know? So you've got all these operatives out there. What do you do as leaders to make sure that message is getting across?
Yeah, I mean, we've only been going since 2010, so we're a bit of a new kid on the block. So we've been trying to use technologies to make sure that that message gets out. So we have like an app that we developed that will send that message out. But so the toolbox talks and all the regular stuff. But then we do have moments where we will take people out of the workplace and sit them down and share the risks with the teams and the supervisors, and just try and educate people. Yeah. So I think what do? We're very process driven. I think for a company of our size, well, a lot of our customers, when they see the stuff that goes on in the background, trying to do the job as best we can, you can see that we try and cover every base before it happens. You're never going to do that, but
absolutely,
all you can do is try your best, and it's by engaging with everyone who's out there doing the job, and taking these things seriously.
Right, good. Thank you for that. And I think there's some really good learnings that we're just getting already, just from those about people, about safety, and as leaders, we've got to recognise just how important that is. I want to come back to you, Jenny, because I want to ask you, when everything goes to plan, that's great. When it doesn't, it's not so good. So can you share a time when things didn't go to plan, and how did you respond, and what did you sort of learn?
Well, we work in highways, and we work in highways. Things regularly don't go to plan, and I think, I could pick 100 things, whether it's an incident that's just, it's got suddenly worse, or severe weather, or clients have pulled funding, or the revenue we thought was going to arrive hasn't arrived, or something has happened. And so we'd be here all day if I told you all the things that didn't go to plan for me. It'd be a very long day. But I think how I respond to it is fairly. I've got into that rhythm, and the first thing for me is just to remind myself that nobody's coming to save me, and I say that to our team all the time when we get a problem. And they'll come, so Jen, we thought we were getting 10 million quid's worth of revenue. We've got 1 million quid's worth of revenue. What we're going to do here? the first thing is that we've got to solve that problem ourselves. Nobody is ever going to come to save us. You know, I was reflecting yesterday about some of the speakers I heard, and it was great to hear from other speakers, but, you know, there was a message around we need more money to invest in highways. And, you know, nobody's going to come and save us with a few billion quid. It's just not going to happen. So that tends to be really how I approach. I think I generally keep quite calm. I think over the years I've calmed down quite a bit. You know, when adversity hits, I've taken that time to reflect, just take a beat to reflect, you know, and to consider what the options will be. And I do think one of the most important things, and I've seen this so many times, is that people just fail to make a decision. You know, they're so paralyzed by the fear of making a wrong decision or getting something wrong that they fail to make a decision. And then events overtake them, and the thing that you thought was going to go wrong goes wrong before your very eyes. And so I think that's really important, to make good decisions as quickly as you possibly can. And sometimes it's just it can be the best case scenario. You make the best decision you can in the moment with the information you have. But the one thing I have learned, and I always remember this many times, is if you're going to fail fast. You know, I've seen businesses and teams and people make wrong decisions. I've made wrong decisions myself, probably lots of them. But one of the things I've learned to do is, when you can see it going wrong, fail fast, change your course, change your decision, and get back to a successful plan as quickly as you possibly can. And I think that rhythm and that skill set and that ability to be able to meet falls as they come to you is something that's very prevalent in the highways industry, because we work with people, we work with budgets and politics, and lots of things are outside of our control. And I do think having that skill set, which I do see in lots of colleagues around the room, is really critical to running a successful network.
Yeah, and good. Thank you for that. And Rob, what would you say? Just give us just an example of where you think that things haven't gone to plan, and what did you do? Just keep it quite brief if you can.
I was going to say I'm going to try and keep it quite brief, but like Jenny says, we've all probably had moments in our careers where things have gone upside down, and like you're saying, we've got to act fast. And the biggest thing, like I'm just saying, economic change. So since 2016 to 2024, we're in now, we've had Brexit, COVID, inflation, war, you know, and if you look at now the weather across the country, 1 in 100 events are happening nearly twice a year across the country. And so we are always looking for the business crisis plan. So we've come up with a business crisis plan for all these major impacts since COVID and Brexit. And that's formed off of COVID because no one knew it was coming. We didn't plan for it. It hit us. And then all of a sudden we had the inflation area where we've had 2 or 3 jobs where they went into pain because of inflation. And then now you look at weather, you know, some of the sites we got, it's 1 in 100, but 1 in 100 is happening now every sort of year. And if you look at us, we operate nationally. So we'll have 2 sites, we'll have a flooding event across the country. And so we've took that on board. We've done winterisation plans. And we seem to be always doing plans and strategies as leaders, and they think, oh, we're bringing something else out. But unless we do that, we don't learn. And these are the key things that I've picked up on over the last, especially 7 to 10 years. I think it might be the curse working with James since 2016. But since then, we've had we're dealing with war, and then this weather event. You know, we see in the Midlands, the A421, it's never been flooded before. It's now flooded. It's best for boats, not cars at the minute. And we've now got to look at that going forward as industry leaders and individuals around the room.
Yeah.
What's next gonna get us? And we've got a plan for that.
So thanks for that. I'm just thinking, Karen, when things have gone wrong, what's your process for learning from those experiences if something doesn't quite go to plan?
Okay, so I suppose looking at this from a local highway authority perspective, sometimes you can get a culture of non-ownership when something goes wrong. So if I go, it's creating that culture, the right culture for when things do go wrong, whether it's budgetary, whether it's schemes, whether it's political, is we are a united team that look at it, face things head on. But we also do, which everyone will be used to doing, is like debriefs, looking at it. How can we do that better? How can we improve? there's a lot of people involved in our decision making, whether it's the corporate leadership or, like I say, from the elected members. But I think for us, it's more about owning that, what goes wrong, how we deal with it. Because there's a lot of time people try and bury things in local authorities. You can never bury them; they'll always come out. But I think it's people having that safe, confident culture that people can speak out about it, so that we know early on we can brief the relevant members. So I think for me, if I was to sum it up, it's creating the right culture where people feel they're safe and confident to raise issues where they can, concerns, things are going wrong, but then how we collectively deal with it. So it's more about the culture for me.
Yeah, and I really agree with that. And what we don't want is a blame culture.
Yeah.
But, Jenny made the point that we've all made mistakes, haven't we, as leaders? You've got to own that.
Yeah.
And then what do we do about that? And we create a culture that people feel that they can say, actually, I've messed up. And, they're not going to then have the wrath coming down on them. They're going to get supported.
And if you think about development, we've talked a lot today about retaining people, employment. We've got very different generations coming up through, and it is about them as well, feeling that they've got a safe environment. With different generations operate differently. So, it's setting that right culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So, James, just thinking about the skills for a leader that needs to develop, what do you feel are the most important skills? And there'll be lots of them, but what do you believe? And how do you cultivate those skills in yourself and in your team?
I'm going to follow on from the word culture and add curious culture. I mean, one of the, as a senior officer in a business, the reality is that the work is done by our colleagues. I live by 2 or 3 mantras. One of them is the front line is the bottom line. Our colleagues who are out there doing the job, the service provision for whatever that is, they are doing it the best possible way they know with the tools that we've given them. When things go wrong, let's start and try and be curious to wonder why it's gone wrong. What is it we could have done differently? And quite frankly, it's very rarely those individuals' issues that's going to fall. So I think curiosity, listening, you have to be visible. You have to get out and about, you have to go into the motorway at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and just stand there chatting to the lads. It is just part of the job. And you get so much from it, I'll be absolutely frank. I think you need to be authentic. There has to be, I do focus a lot on health, safety and well-being of the workforce. Well, that means I need to actually listen and act on stuff that I see as well.
Yeah.
So I think, we can go for empathy. There's all things that you are. But I think ultimately people are looking at you to try and provide a direction, stability for their job. We want everyone wants to go home not just safe and well, but actually fulfilled and growing in their career. All of those things will come from, I think, being curious about how well we're doing the job and how well we're servicing the clients. The clients being the customer just as much as the local authority.
Yeah, so some really good qualities coming out there in terms of listening, being actively involved, being visible. I think if I had to put a hand up for leaders who have been stood on the side of the motorway in the yellow jacket with traffic going past, I've certainly done it. Really scary, but it does make a difference. We're not out there, doing the work, but when people see you, actually, James, Carol, Jenny, they're proper leaders. We're part of what's going on. Josh, coming to you, what advice would you give to those balancing the pressure of immediate goals, which you've got to do, suppliers have to do, but also looking at that long-term future? How do you balance that?
I mean, as a business, we've started from nothing, so pressure of continually growing and developing has always been a constant factor for us. And whilst you can't let the unplanned events that come along the way knock you off track. And I mean, we've had some events early on in the business that we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the way we acted. We had events where very early on we didn't get paid on time, and then as a small business, you know, you're in serious bother. Going back to the culture thing, one thing which Nick have done really well at Multevo is everyone's as important as everyone else, and people are put in positions across the business and trusted to do that job. So there's almost like there's an emphasis on empowering people to be curious, as James says, continually improve and do the job right. But I think that flatline management almost gives people a responsibility and makes people take ownership as well. So when we've had challenges along the way, everybody's knuckled down. I mean, we had it back in the early days where, as I say, when we didn't get paid on time, that everyone in the business at that time took a 10% pay cut. It was asked of them, and everybody did. Now, they got that back when we got out of the bother we was in early on. But that in itself, I think, shows that, you know, everyone's together. And I think we continue that today. I mean, I'm chuffed to bits that we have to chuck this in there, that we won not only Team of the Year last week at the Highways Awards, but last night the Collaborative Partnership Award. And I think that says it all, really. It's about having a team and empowering that team to do the best that they can do and feel that they can make a difference and they're trusted to do that.
And just want to ask you, Rob, as well, thank you for that, about that long term. How do you keep a focus on the long term as a supplier with all the things you've just said that can upend it?
It's an ever-changing environment, isn't it? So we're always diversifying, finding where the market's going. And as you said, it's that pre-planning and empowering the teams around you, the people on site that work day in, day out. Their values, their opinions are so valued. So making them accountable and also empowering them to be accountable is so important, because we can't do everything. We can't be there. They can't do everything. And looking forward is one of the big things I was talking to James about last night was we're very busy at the moment, and I said it's hard with all the stuff that's going on in the industry, and he was like, you need to learn to probably be a good delegator, as James is. And my view is that if we can empower people within the site teams, and myself, I can look forward into the future and find what's coming in the next 5-10 years, as we spoke yesterday about, you know, autonomous vehicles and what's going to be next, what's our network going to be. So I'm already looking at that, how we can enhance our industry and bring new technologies and innovations, whilst the day job today, we've got hundreds of people across site that need to be empowered to make decisions for the now. So yeah, I'm quite grateful that I've got a good team though, so it's quite good.
Excellent. And I think that thing about empowering others is really important, and humility is important. We can't do everything. As great as you guys are, you can't do everything. So you've got to be able to feel, people got to feel that they're empowered to start doing some of that stuff and delegate. And particularly, I was thinking in somewhere like Multevo, where it's a small company or company that's come from, you feel very precious about it. But actually, it's about making sure other people can make a contribution. Rob?
But that also gives you the gems in your business that were future leaders.
Yeah.
So you empower them, and when you grow, you can promote within and give them the future leadership. Yeah. They're the gems that come out. If you give them the empowerment to make decisions on daily basis, you'll always look in your team and go, they're the next stars of the future. And that's what the industry is about.
Yeah. Did you want to say something, Ken?
I'm just going to say it is the humble leader.
Yeah.
You know, it's you can reflect on that. What does that actually mean? But the humble leader is about, as you say, working with your teams, empowering them. And that is the powerful, you know, those days have been quite an autocratic, quite a directive, quite a, you know, you do as I say, not as I do. And I think across the industry, and I've certainly seen it, people are working more together, recognise it. You won't get anywhere with people. You know, it's about, I said it, and you said it, it's about being authentic, it's being you.
Yeah.
And leaders isn't something you can teach. It's something that you're quite gifted, and that's our future leaders when you recognise them coming through their career. And that's the bit that I really love when I work with my teams. You know, and you see them in our partners, you see these individuals coming up and you recognise them. So yeah, I think the humble leader is quite a something that I often reflect on.
Fantastic, and I'm completely on the same page with you. Is that we're running out of time a little bit, so I'm just going to go back to you, James, and say, if you could go back in time to the young James, what advice would you give yourself as a first-time leader?
Gosh, well, like Jenny, there's loads of mistakes and things I should have done better or differently, whatever. However, when I stand up in front of all the apprentices or graduates every year, I always I tell some of the health and safety stories and things that we've done. And I always try and use how things have gone wrong and how we learn from them. But the one thing I wish I did was had realised, because there's a lot of things we see in plain sight we know are wrong. We do it, we put up with it because it's the way it's always been done. We accept it because it's probably the easiest way to do it. But we know in our hearts of hearts, we wouldn't want our son or daughters doing that. So if we don't want that for our own family, why do we ask someone else to do it? And I think that's the thing I wish I'd done more of. And what I try and impart to the youngsters coming into the sector is, don't be in my position. You've had to go and see, the widow of somebody that's been killed because they were doing something which we knew probably they shouldn't have been doing anyway. So that's the lesson.
Thank you. And Jenny, what would you tell the young Jenny, 20 years ago or whatever?
I think probably chill out a bit. I would have go back and tell her, like, relax. I think probably that you're never gonna have all the answers, and you're never gonna get all the work done. I remember, being in running great jobs and great projects and developing teams and transformational programs. And I remember the amount of pressure I would put on myself was always 100 times greater than the pressure people around me would put on me. And I always felt that there was so much to do and it all needed to be done. And then as a leader, as an emerging leader, quite young, I always felt that pressure to, you must be perfect. You must have all the answers. And actually, at my age today, I know I don't have the answers. I know I will be. I am an imperfect leader. I have always been an imperfect leader, and I always will be. And I'm very proud to share that I'm an imperfect leader. And I think we all are. And I wish somebody had told me that it was okay to be an imperfect leader 25 years ago. Yeah.
Thank you. And Rob, what would you tell yourself?
I was listening to that quite carefully because when I was younger and as an upcoming leader, one of the biggest failings I had was I tried to do it all. And I didn't realise that people around me were different and better skill sets. So then as I've grown in my leadership roles, I've actually got those people in place that are better than me and helping me aspire to be and do my job today. And what I did when I was younger was you can't do it all. And if you do try and do it all, you will fail. Then that's when you start learning. And I think the people around you are so key in your team environment, and the right people will make a great team and you'll deliver success all day long.
Karen?
I think for me, if I was looking back, it would be more saying, and I don't want this to come out incorrect, that I was right in what I did, and I'll explain that. Coming up through my career, like I say, you had this quite an autocratic approach to leadership, and I was never that person. I wanted to be the caring one, and quite often as a relationship leader, you can be viewed as, well, you're not getting anything out of the staff. It should be the expectations. You're too soft. Is she strong enough? So for me, I think I was right to be, I'm sorry, I'm going to use that word again, authentic. I was right to be me. Mm-hmm. So I'm pleased I stuck to my guns, really, and remained how I was.
Okay, and the last word to you, please. Just a couple of words. What would you tell the slightly younger Josh?
I suppose I'd say that, you can't take on too much and you can't do it all. You need to trust the people around you. If I think about it, when I started, I was looking after the marketing at Multevo, and it then becomes your baby. But as we've grown, that baton's been handed to Amy, so she's somewhere in the room, I would hope. And what a good job she's doing. So well done, Amy. But yeah, I think it's similar to what Rob said, really. You kind of realise that everyone's got different skill sets and some are better than you. So let them crack on.
Great, good. So, just from that summing up, I've just made a few notes of what people have said. So there's the relationship manager, there's the humble manager, There's the authentic manager. There's the imperfect manager. There's a manager that empowers and delegates to others. So I hope you all agree with me. We've had some fantastic insights from our leaders up here today. Run slightly over time, but I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to participate. So can you join me in thanking our panel?